Is the Samsung Galaxy A33 5G worth buying in 2023? Well, in this video, we're going to find out. What's going on, everyone? This is Kevin here, and this is the Galaxy A33 5G. Now, this device was originally launched in April of 2022, so at this point, I wouldn't necessarily call this an old, outdated phone, but on the other hand, since this phone was launched, there have been a lot of competitors released as well, so I figured this video would be a good opportunity to look back on the A33 5G to see how it currently stands. Now, this device was never sold officially in the US, however, it has been offered in a variety of different regions around the world, and I have linked to it in the video description so you can see the most up-to-date pricing and availability. Now, the device does come in a fairly slim box, and the reason for that is because unfortunately, there is no USB wall adapter included. We do, however, get a SIM card removal tool, a quick start guide, and we also get a double-sided USB-C cable for charging and data transfer. Now, my favorite thing about the Galaxy A33 5G definitely has to be the display that we're getting here with the phone, as it looks really good. Now, this display is 6.4 inches, so that does make this a pretty large phone, and the display does feature Corning Gorilla Glass 5, which does make it extra durable. Now, the display technology that we're getting here is Super AMOLED, which essentially means that we're getting really great colors, we're also getting good viewing angles as well, and overall, this is one of the best display technologies that they could really give a mid-range phone like this one. Now, to make things even better, this device does feature a 90 Hz refresh rate, making things a bit smoother compared to the standard 60 Hz, so that's definitely a nice touch. Now, the display is 1080p, we're getting a PPI of 411, a 20:9 aspect ratio, so a more narrow but taller form factor, and we're getting an 83.7% screen-to-body ratio. So we do have a little bit of a thicker bottom bezel and also a notch up top here, but overall I feel like the phone does have a really nice design to it. Now, one of the benefits with having a 20:9 aspect ratio is that when you pull up a social media app, for example, you'll be able to see more of your feed in a single frame versus having to scroll quite as much compared to 16:9, for example. So that's one benefit. Of course, also, if you want to watch video content in landscape, you can really get a nice immersive experience because you're able to crop in. And then tying that all in with this great looking display really makes this phone excellent for content consumption. Now, with this device, we're getting a 13 megapixel front-facing camera, and we're also getting two different storage configurations, either 128 gigabytes or 256 gigs. Now, even though we are getting a very generous amount of internal storage for either of those configurations, this device also supports microSD card expansion, so that is nice to have that additional option, so you can offload photos and videos, for example, to free up more space on the actual phone itself. Now, unfortunately, there is no wireless charging with the Galaxy A33 5G. In fact, none of the phones in Samsung's A series do have wireless charging, but this phone does feature an in-display fingerprint sensor. So let's give that a try right now. It's very fast and accurate. Let's try that one more time. So that feature really works well here with the phone, and in addition to that, the device also supports Face Unlock, so I do appreciate that we have multiple methods for accessing the phone. Now, another major highlight with the Galaxy A33 5G definitely has to be the cameras. So I already talked a little bit about the front-facing camera, which is 13 megapixels, but we also have a quad camera setup on the back of the phone. So there's a 48 megapixel main camera, an 8 megapixel ultra wide-angle camera that can capture images at up to 123 degrees. We have a 2 megapixel depth sensing camera to assist with portrait mode, and we have a 5 megapixel macro camera for close-up images. So this phone does support portrait mode for both the rear and front cameras, which is definitely really nice to have. Now, here's how things look on the camera app on the device. This is with the main camera right now. Then from here, we can switch over to the ultra wide angle camera, which definitely allows us to fit a lot more content into the frame. I'm a big fan of having ultra wide cameras with whatever phone supports them, because with that feature, it especially comes in handy if you're traveling. Maybe there's a large building that you want to take a picture of, or maybe you're in a very scenic area and you want to really capture your surroundings. I feel like the ultra wide camera especially comes in handy in those situations just because it kind of changes things up a little bit. And of course, you can only capture so much with the standard camera itself. But then from here, we can go over to the macro camera to take close-up images. And as you can see, things are very crisp and clear here. We can also head over to portrait mode to get those nice blurred out backgrounds. We can also adjust the blur effect here as well. And we can flip around to the front-facing camera to do the same thing. So as you can see, we do indeed have portrait mode for the front-facing camera. And we also have the ability to take group selfies too. So if you want to fit more people into one front-facing photo, that mode definitely helps out a little bit. And another awesome thing about this device is that it does support 4K video recording for both the rear and front-facing cameras. So just like the A53 5G, it also has that ability. Now, based on what region you're buying this phone in, the amount of RAM you get could be different. This phone is offered in different models, offering 4, 6, and 8 gigabytes of RAM. However, this particular version of the phone does have 6 gigs of RAM. And the processor that we're getting is the Samsung Exynos 1280. Now, with that processor, it essentially gives us mid-range performance. So don't expect for this phone to be nearly as fast as a $1,000 smartphone, for example. But on the other hand, for what it is, it can definitely accomplish probably the majority of tasks for the majority of people out there. So if you're just looking for a good, reliable smartphone that's not too expensive, but at the same time is good enough for phone calls, text messages, watching video content, going on social media, also going on websites as well, then this phone will be fine for that. However, if you are looking for something a bit more advanced, maybe a phone that's great for video editing, maybe you're just always on your phone all throughout the day, then you might want to go for something a little bit more sophisticated. But again, for the majority of people out there, I feel like this phone does perform well enough to get the job done. Now, I did run a benchmark test using Geekbench 5, and I'll show you the scores from that test right now. But essentially, I got a single core score of 740 and a multi-core score of 1874. So what I recommend doing is running this test on your current phone and then compare your scores to these scores to get a better idea of how the A33 5G compares. Because who knows, it might be possible that this phone is slower than your current phone. Now with this device, we are getting a very large 5,000 milliamp hour internal battery, and along with that, we are getting 25 watt fast charging. Now I did show you that we do have a double-sided USB-C cable included. However, there is no charging adapter, so you will have to go out and get that on your own. And you could potentially use one that you already have, but you'll definitely want to make sure that that's actually 25 watts, because most of them are not. Most of the wall adapters that do support 25 watt fast charging tend to be a little bit on the pricier side, so keep that in mind. But I do think that is worth it if you do want to get the full fast charging abilities out of this device. And that's especially important because we are getting such a large battery here. Now with that large battery, we're of course getting really good battery life, but just keep in mind that if it's not paired up with a fast charger, then you might have to sit around for quite a while watching this phone recharge. Now this device does feature NFC, which is awesome. So if you do like to make mobile contactless payments using tap and pay, this phone is definitely a great option for that. So if you're a Samsung Pay user, then here you go. And then this device also features IP67 dust and water resistance, which means that you can take it underwater for up to 1 meter for up to 30 minutes. And this phone also features stereo speakers. So when listening to music or watching a video, you're going to be getting audio coming out of both the main speaker and also the earpiece, which is definitely a premium touch that you don't always find with mid-range and lower-end smartphones. But now that we've gone over many of the major features and specifications of this phone, let's now take a closer look at the hardware itself. So I already talked quite a bit about the front panel here. It is a 6.4-inch display. We do have a slightly thicker bottom bezel here and also a water drop notch up top, but in general, I do like this form factor quite a bit. Now this phone is made completely out of plastic, besides the display, which is glass of course, so keep that in mind. And I do recommend pairing up this phone with some sort of case, just so that the device gets a little bit more longevity. I know that plastic does tend to scratch up as time goes on, so certainly keep that in mind. Now taking a look at the left side of the phone, we have nothing. Then on the right side of the phone, we have volume up, volume down, and also the power button. Then up top here, we have the noise canceling microphone, and also the slot for the micro SD card and SIM card. And then on the bottom of the device, we have the microphone, USB-C port for charging and data transfer, and the speaker. Now one thing that you probably noticed that is missing is a 3.5mm headphone jack. Now unfortunately, there is not one here with the A33 5G. So if you do want to use traditional wired headphones, you will have to get some sort of adapter to plug into the USB-C port, and then you can go from there, but you cannot plug them directly into the phone. And then take a look at the backside of the device. We don't have much, we just have the camera module and Samsung logo, and that's pretty much it. However, I am a big fan of this kind of matte finish on the back of the phone, and in general, I do think it's a really nice looking handset. And it does look a lot more expensive than you'd expect this phone to be. So overall, I do think the Galaxy A33 5G is a great handset from Samsung, and since it was launched back in April of 2022, it has aged very well. This phone still is very competitive, definitely still a good option, and there's many things about it that especially make it stand out. I would say the main highlights definitely have to be the display, the amount of storage that we're getting, as even at the lowest configuration of storage, we're still getting 128 gigs. We're also getting excellent cameras with this device, and overall decent performance for a mid-range smartphone. So if you are considering going for the A33 5G, I definitely don't think it's a bad choice to go for at this point in 2023. But most importantly, I am curious to know what you think about the Samsung Galaxy A33 5G. Do you think this phone is still a good option, or do you think there's better options to go for that are out there? Definitely let me know. But I hope you enjoyed the video. Give it a thumbs up. This is Kevin here, and I will see you in the next one.